All right, we're gonna go ahead and call this meeting to order. This is a meeting of the Wellington American Rescue Plan Act Commission, otherwise known as the Arpa Commission. It is June 6, 2022 at 1:30 p.m. and this is one of our regular meetings. And the first thing we do is roll call. And I think just looking around the room, I think the only person that is not here is Samantha and Robin. So we definitely have a quorum. And I think let's get everybody on. Next item is approval of minutes. And I did send out in the packet, I sent you out copies of all the ones from the last few meetings. So I guess we'll entertain a motion to approve the minutes from April 18th, 2022. So moved. Second.
Second.
All right. Any discussion about those minutes? All right. All in favor of approving? Aye. Anyone opposed? Anyone abstaining? And I'll entertain a motion for 2022 minutes.
So moved.
I'll second.
Discussion about those. Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Anyone abstaining? Okay, and then the next one is May 24th, 2022, which was our public hearing and the last time that we met.
Will we accept?
Second.
Second, any discussion on those? All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Anyone abstaining? Okay, so all of the minutes are approved and they will be up on our website, our webpage. We're trying to keep updated. Correspondence, the only thing, I did receive a couple of emails from people about very specific projects that we're going to be discussing here, so I don't think I need to go through them all in detail, but did get a few emails about the Button Hill project, and but I did send you guys all copies of a couple of different things, and now I don't know what they were exactly, but I know one was a letter that I wrote to the Board of Selectmen a while back, and I don't think that there was anything, just general questions about the process and things like that, but nothing. So we can move on to present to speak, and this is where any of you here or online, I think, do you have anything? Can ask a question or make a comment. Hi, John.
Hi, I sent you an email, but
Yeah.
I don't know if it was the right question.
Yes.
You did
Yep,
get it,
I
okay.
got it, but then my printer wasn't working and I had to run out, but well, I'll share it with everybody afterwards, but I'm guessing you're here to talk about it, so.
Well, I'm here to talk about the project and request that sooner than later, in case I get a phone call from
Yeah,
a medical equipment company, I need to be home.
yeah,
Okay,
okay, that makes sense. All right, anybody else? All right, so we can move right on to new business. Since our last regular meeting, we received 3 project requests, and actually just yesterday, someone made another request, which did not make it onto the agenda. I think we could add it. Okay, well, I'll just add it. It would be called Arpa 2035, and it is from. I don't really know what it is. Wellington Community Cares. And there was no description of what it would be for, but they want $6,000.
They didn't say what they wanted.
No, but it's like the form wasn't so that they didn't attach something, maybe. So we can get back to them and ask them, and maybe not accept it today. It's not acceptable. Because I think if it's a nonprofit, they're better served going to the EDC directly. So we'll follow up on that one. So we can entertain a motion to formally receive ARPA 32, which is the retention bonus plan, $32,250. ARPA 33, flags, grave markers, and monument repair for $6,500. And ARPA 34, a storage box at Department of Public Works for evictions for $6,000.
We'll receive all three.
Okay, here a second.
Second.
Okay. Any discussion about just receiving these and putting these into the formal queue? Okay, so all in favor of receiving them? Anyone opposed? Any abstentions? Okay. Now we are going to move on to the press to be heard for the first time today, which the first one is ARPA 32, the retention bonus plan for $32,250.
So this is a request from the Board of Selectmen, and this would be for a one-time bonus payment to all regular permanent staff, as well as to contracted staff members in the town hall. And it would include money for a staff appreciation event between the Board of Education and town office building staff. So the money we're requesting is $32,250. It's either a $2,000 base for department heads or a $1,000 base bonus for the remainder of the staff. And I say base rate because for some it's prorated for the amount of time they've been here during COVID. So some, for instance, there are two department heads that have been here since the mid-fall. And so instead of $2,000, the proposal from the Board of Selectmen is $500. So we prorated that. This is a way to acknowledge the above and beyond the work that our staff did. Our staff needs to be in person to be able to conduct the majority of the business of the town, and wanted to recognize that. I will mention this does not include any elected officials. The board is taking up that discussion separately because specifically under two categories in the American Rescue Plan, in the final rule, it speaks specifically to exclude elected officials. Where it gets a little unclear is if we use the funds for revenue loss and we take them from there, there is no mention, but because there are at least two other places where they specifically exclude elected officials, I did not include that in this and thought it best that we deal with that separate. The only caveat to the $2,000 base rate was for our business manager. Between her extensive work with the Board of Ed and the town and the increased number of grants and reporting that has come from COVID funds, we asked for $3,000 for that individual.
So my only question, which it occurred to me immediately when I'm seeing this request, is that this committee, a lot of the people on this commission are people who would personally benefit. So in my opinion, we can't really approve this. So then I wasn't sure what happens in that situation.
So I know your question to me was would the Board of Selectmen then take this up separately? I would say I would want this commission to have a very open discussion, but the ordinance is clear in how the funds are done. And if we begin to decide which project goes before the Board of Selectmen, the Board of Finance and town meeting, I think we're opening ourselves up to say that any project then could be argued to go that direction. And so I would rather have that discussion here at the Arpa Commission.
Mhm.
I don't see, looking at Robert's rules, when you're deciding a simple majority, you don't count abstentions or people that aren't voting.
Mhm.
So you're only counting voting. So if there's 5 people, 4 people, as long as you've got 3 people here to vote, then you're good to go.
It would depend who those 3 people are though. Because,
So if everybody abstained, which they probably would, that get the bonus, you still have 5 people on the commission.
But an abstention is more a no vote. Would it be better if they recuse themselves in whole?
It's a non-vote. Either
yeah,
abstention, recuse, whatever you want to call it, is a non-vote. It's not counted as when you calculate a majority. It's just the people that are voting. So it's
yeah, and then there's recusals, like a true recusal would be someone not even speaking on the topic. So,
right. And so far nobody has, right?
My only thought on this
So
would
far,
be-
only I
So
have.
far nobody has, right?
My only thought is that a lot of times, at least in my understanding of recusing from a decision, is that you stand to benefit differently than someone else. Because number one, we're not deciding what the disbursement is. It wasn't our idea. And it's a very transparent mathematical equation. I'm not choosing to make that decision because I could benefit personally from someone else. Every employee is being treated exactly the same based on eligibility, which we're not deciding. So I think this is a little bit different. I'm not saying that there's not another way to do it, if that's what we decide makes sense. Based on numbers and, yeah.
Recusal is a personal decision anyway. You can't dictate to someone, even though you're absolutely right, and I agree with you. You can't dictate somebody else's, and they can be criticized for that decision, but it's up to the individual, really.
I have a question. Could we do it separately? So like Troy's bonus, we vote on independently. My bonus, we vote on independently. So that specific person would not be involved in the voting process.
I don't know. I mean, it's kind of feels like the same to me. I don't know.
I mean, I think that the benefit could be there if we discuss each, I mean, we wouldn't want to discuss each person independently, but if we discuss them so that someone's not suggesting, they're not participating in the discussion to sway it either way.
So do you have a problem with just like, if I make a motion now, going by what you're saying, you, right?
Yeah.
The 2 stewards,
And yep, and Erica.
Erica and myself, and that's,
And Samantha,
so there's,
if you were to join us.
I mean, there's plenty of people to vote, and as long, so I don't see any. I agree with you about what you're
Yeah.
saying. They should hush up, don't vote.
Yeah.
And as long as that happens, and we all just vote.
So, well, just with who's here now, it's 10 people. So a simple majority would be 6.
But that's not, excuse me. I'm sorry.
Yeah, no, go ahead.
You don't calculate, what I'm trying to say is you don't
You don't have-
calculate the majority by those in attendance. You calculate the majority, again, this isn't for me. Calculate who's voting,
Mhm.
the voters.
Okay.
And then if you're abstaining or recusing yourself, you're not voting, so those aren't counted, right?
It's not counted, but it's not counted.
So 3 people voted and 2 voted in favor of the pass.
Right. Okay, I guess I was thinking that however many people were here, you'd have to have half of those people in the vote, first of all. Because, and then that would come into play.
Robin, do you,
So I'm sorry, I'm not quite up to par. I kind of know what you're talking about, but
so a majority is those voting. You don't count people that are here. You don't count the abstentions or recusals. The majority is counted by the people that are voting. In other words, you know what I'm saying?
so if there's 10 people here and 6 people abstain.
Right.
And only 4 people vote yes, that wouldn't pass. If not sure, we might need,
I think that's still.
Yeah, I don't,
But
I
an
don't,
abstention goes with the majority, so if you have a 4-person yes,
But I don't think you'd have to recuse, not abstaining.
will be up to each individual person.
yeah, like an ethical thing would probably be, that's my opinion.
I don't think we're gonna, I mean, we can talk about it. I don't think we really need to personally be as concerned with us deciding to vet this and put it to public hearing. And then if we get all this stuff, I mean, by the time we then decide we want to make a decision, I think we can work out the semantics of this, but I don't know that it's controversial to say, let's hear from the residents on it. So I think we can at least move that portion forward. Let's hear what they say. And if everybody shows up and says this is a terrible idea, whatever, I think that gives us some time to seek clarity if necessary.
In the meantime, if you'd like me to, with this, I'm sure you get some.
Yeah, I would just feel comfortable with that, because
Before I move to that direction, we, we're always cautious to use those legal funds.
yeah,
If we can, come up with an answer. I thought it was important that the commission was responsible for the project approval per our ordinance, had the discussion before we moved it out of there.
and I just know there was concern when this ordinance was passed that just that a lot of the people on this commission are employees, and this is where that becomes an issue. honestly.
but I disagree with you. Respectfully. That- that According to Robert's rules, you don't count the people in a room, you count the voters. So if you're recusing yourself or you're abstaining, you're not part of the count.
Yes, I'm sorry, so if you recuse yourself, that brings then brings the quorum.
Okay,
down
so
to-
we do agree.
Yes,
Okay.
yes,
So if it's 10 people, 5 recuse themselves, 5 are voting. So then you need 3 to vote yes.
3 to vote yes,
To pass.
yeah, I would think that's.
So today we're only voting on referring to public hearing.
That's correct.
Yes.
And then, I mean,
Or tabling it.
Right, I mean,
a ruling from the, I don't think you need it, but if it makes, Madam Chair, no, I don't mean it like that, but if you're more solid that way, getting that, absolutely. But I'll move that we move Arpa 32 to public hearings.
I'll second.
Who votes? Who votes? Everybody?
Because we're just bringing it to public hearing, so that's what the motion is.
Or we have to vote? to
It's
take it to
it's
the
really a
public?
personal
Right.
choice.
and
Stuart.
he's
So I'm
doing-
asking who votes?
it's up
So
to you.
every-
Everyone has their own choice.
Everyone has their own choice. And this one is just, but all we're voting on is whether or not this should go to a public hearing. We're not voting yes or no to the actual expenditure.
Which is the case for all the funds, right? They all go to public hearing and get finalized.
Right,
Maybe.
yeah.
I
or-
suppose if we didn't agree with one, we might not send it forward to public hearing.
Right, of course.
So I know we're in discussion, right, if I may.
yeah.
So while I appreciate all the discussion on the vote, was there, before we got to this point, the commission didn't really have any questions or discuss the process? I didn't know if, the public would want, before we move it, that for members, any and all, to weigh in on their thoughts of the project, or we waiting until after?
I've already talked way too much. But I said before that I thought that it was great that we're putting some resources into human resources. It is a delicate thing, which is kind of why I'm being louder, because I know it's harder for the employees to. It's one of my favorite projects because of that. It's our human resources that we're supporting. Best thing.
And again, I had some comments, but they don't speak to the motion, so I don't know if this would be appropriate or not. Chief Moore could not be in attendance today, but he did reach out to me prior to today and then again today, saying that with this project, he would like to see something similar with our fire department staff. When I first spoke with him, I was not opposed to that, but I thought that should come from the fire department. Is there in a separate fund? So his question to this commission was, would we consider adjusting this to tack on fire department staff, or would we rather see a separate proposal? The Board of Selectmen only took action on staff that the town. the fire department selected.
Yeah.
Not to leave them out, I certainly recognize the incredible work that our paid staff did, especially in those early months. It was tremendous.
Is this open to discussion now?
Yeah.
Should we do the motions first and then open for discussion?
Yeah, so the motion's on the table to move it to public hearing, but we're talking about it right now, because
So my concern with these sorts of things, and I've been involved with them in other towns, is the rolling effect going forward. So it increases the base rate for everybody. And, well, someone needs to answer that.
Yeah, so
What
I,
does it do going forward and how will we budget for that?
so I did, I'm sorry, I apologize if you didn't hear me in the first place. This is a one-time bonus. That does not affect their.
Doesn't go to
pay.
their
It does
base rate.
not affect the pay. It is a one-time bonus from the Arpa Commission, so it does not have a board effect. We were, it was important to us that we recognize staff, but not increase using ARPA dollars on the taxpayer for this moving forward in the future. If that, then we'd essentially be adjusting their salary.
So how many employees in town could be affected? And how many are we affected?
Sure.
Because the fire department now, I think you just said is coming forward saying, what about us?
Right.
Who else is going to come forward and say, what about us?
I can't speak to that. The town, they are not town employees. You know, that we, Board of Ed has its own staff, the fire department has its own staff, the library has its own staff. So I don't know of any others that would come forward. And maybe Stuart can answer how many fire departments paid staff this would affect.
Being full-time and part-time, no more than 15.
And this is 25 staff members in the town.
Because they're just separate employees and everything's separate about them. Personally, I would, and both fire department representatives, that Chief Moore would do just a separate request from their department. As opposed to
That's
falling in
my thought, too.
with this, let's keep, it is separate. They are separate employees. So. let's
And
just-
the structure might be different too, because if they're part-time
Yeah.
versus full-time versus work.
So my initial comment to him when he'd heard of the request that the Board of Selectmen were proposing, I said the same thing, simply, we're not as familiar with the structure of their staff in order to make those decisions, and I thought I personally had advised him then that I thought the fire department should put in their own request. But this was his request today, that we at least consider one of the two, or if we'd like them to do their own. I agree with you, John.
Needs to be a separate request. The manner in which they do calls and who works and all those things is not as simple as this Excel spreadsheet. I don't know how we do that math, and I wouldn't want to do it sort of on the fly. It's easy to just consider it separately.
I agree. So I guess the message back to Chief Moore is that we'd like to see them submit it as a separate request. Okay, any other comments? Okay, and moving to public hearing. Okay, so all in favor of moving it to public hearing?
Aye.
Aye.
Anyone abstain? Anybody say no?
I'm gonna abstain because I wasn't here for the conversation.
So now that one's gonna move into the public hearing category, so we'll go to a public hearing with it, and then at that point, try to understand what might happen when we do vote and what the possible scenarios would be with the number of people, recusing, abstaining, like what all those different things can, scenarios could be. Okay. So moving on to Article 33, flags, grave markers, and monument repair for $6,500. And I believe Ed got here to talk about that.
Yeah, we've recently, as we've gone through this pandemic and thing, I mean, it's been difficult for families to make donations to anything. And we found that the cost of flags and the cost of maintaining this stuff has gone up drastically. What we've done is we've formulated and we started a nonprofit foundation that in the future would go out and get funds through donations to keep this thing going, to keep these things going. Up until now, there's been no cohesive groups together to organize and track this stuff. So what we found is we found that there were grave markers missing in the cemeteries. There are people who have been calling us about flags not being on their loved ones' graves. That's just one side of it. And then we also have the flags on the road that you see displayed. Those get to be very expensive. There's 55 flags up there now. Every time a truck goes by, it takes its toll on it. We got those through donations, but like I said, because of COVID, because of the pandemic and thing, people lost their jobs, the donations have gone down, we don't have the money, and we want to try and keep this thing running. Likewise, the same with the Veterans Memorial. The Veterans Memorial was built by the town, by veterans. It was funded by them. We've done very well as far as keeping it up, but it's cost money to maintain it, and we need something to get us through this next phase where we're just not getting funds in. We do have plans, that's why we started the foundation. We do have plans to raise money in the future, but we need something now to keep things going. So that's why we came up with this request. This is basically for the whole town. We have people come to us all the time asking us when we're going to put the flags up, or asking us when they can buy a stone to put a paver in for a loved one. Or, like I said, I get calls all the time from people saying, well, my grandfather doesn't have a marker on his grave or a flag. How can I get one? All of this takes money, and that's why we're doing it. We wanted to get a group together. And this foundation, anybody in town it's open to membership. Anybody in town can become a member. We've already had people sign up to become members in town. I foresee this growing to 1,000 or more citizens within town being members of this foundation. And it is going to be nonprofit. We already have established a set of bylaws. I've got to talk with Robin to find out how those have to be recorded. So this is what we're asking the money for.
So if we wanted to write a check right now to it, is there an entity created that we can send the money to?
Yes, it
Like
would be
right
it would be the Wellington Veterans Memorial Foundation.
Okay. Yeah, I just want to make sure that if we, in the timing that we do this, that it would be all right, so.
I have a couple questions. So right now, the town, within the selectmen's budget, and specifically the selectmen's office, we have funds for flags.
Right.
Oh,
this-
wait, I'm sorry, wait,
Yeah.
I just said flags for Memorial Day.
Right.
That, and all that goes through the town. We agree to the flags that are gorgeous, that go from the senior center to the cemetery, which look wonderful and have been incredibly maintained. We put that through the town. Are you saying you want to take all of that over now and there would no longer be town funds needed?
That's correct. We're actually giving this back to the citizens of Wellington. They would be the ones that would be maintaining it. We are looking at sending up funding sites. We're also looking at getting private donations.
So when you say all of the flags, are you talking about every flag on every flagpole or just the flags that are on the street and the monuments in the cemetery? I just want to make sure we're looking at this from all.
This would be the flags in the cemetery, the flags on the street. Some of the public flags we've been looking at also, like the Veterans Memorial.
There are 14 large flags displayed in the town.
if you count the fire departments, the schools, the cemeteries, town green here, and the field in the back, one at the post office. So different people, different groups fund those. Sometimes I have a list, and I think I turned one into Robin, and I think I turned one into you in regard to who's in charge of putting them up and taking them down and replacing them. I know the Public Works has bought a second one to replace one. They replaced one and they bought two at the same time, so they have one for replacement. But to somehow coordinate that, so that makes sense. We weren't planning to take that particular part over, but there are 14 large flags displayed on the town. The other flags, some flags have been out for 4 years now. We had a flag hit off a pole by a truck. Again, they replaced the poles on the road. They were very generous about putting the brackets back up, but some of the brackets were not put. Flag at the corner of Old Farms Road here has gone down 3 times in the last 2 years. Just while the trucks turning or going by, it's taking that one down. So that's those when we can. We can only buy them in the spring, reasonable cost. After that, they're like a Costco or BJ's, about $35 a flagpole or holder. It's about $85 if you buy them in the football. That's what I've been able to get them at. Now, as far as the large flags, we've had people that have come forward to us, and we would actively put this out where they have had burial flags. They're old from members that had passed away, and they asked us if they could give them to us to fly in the poles. So this is another option where we would be getting flags in. And those flags could go on the 2 largest poles, which are the Veterans Memorial and the town green. But they would give those as, they would willingly give those. In other words, they have to have someplace to give them, and the foundation is in place so that they could give those flags as a donation. I can tell you there are hundreds of those flags out there that are just sitting in people's houses. Some people, when they want to downsize, they don't know what to do with it. We're giving them an option. They're in good condition. They're probably better flags than we would buy. We're probably talking flags that would be worth around $300 to $400 if we were to purchase a flag like that.
Put an article in the newsletter.
Beg pardon?
Put an article in the newsletter saying we'll take them.
Right. Well, that was one of the plans. I mean, this is all part of this donation process that we're looking at. In other words, getting the word out there.
And just, again, when the flags that are on the poles came to the, when the project came to the town, it was that we then could do this as long as it was fully donated, right? That it would be a new conversation if the town was then expending funds for such a project. And I think we're at that point now where we're looking for funds for a project that we weren't sure could be sustainable, but we budgeted for certain things that are, we feel are the town's responsibility. And now you're saying you want to take that over. But I definitely have some concerns that there's been no discussion between the foundation and here. The first I knew your foundation was formed and existed was when a request came in here. So I think there should be some coordination with the town about town entities, because correct me if I'm wrong, the senior center was handling the Veterans Memorial, the monument, and the upkeep of that, correct?
No,
Was that part of the senior center?
no, the senior center has never,
So who was responsible for it? The VFW?
no. Private citizens, veterans.
Okay,
Veterans in
Okay.
town, and we would get some small donations from citizens. But it's always been taken care of privately.
and
And the
we've had
problem-
donations for these flags, and we've had funds from the town for grave markers and flags for there. And until now, I was not aware that there was an issue with funding for that. I know we were able to fund the number of grave markers and flags that were needed in this year. So I just want to understand where the lack of funds has come from, and if we're completely separating from town projects and moving it into a private organization.
It would be controlled by would be controlled by the foundation. The foundation is also made up of town residents.
So if I could make a suggestion, what would probably be the cleanest thing, and I don't want to go into a lot of detail because it's kind of past Arpa. But what you guys should do is probably give the board of selectmen a list of, you know, like, not so much the bylaws, but the charge of what your committee would be and stuff, kind of get it back to the town to have the selectmen appoint the people. So it's at least like a legit thing.
No, we were doing it strictly to keep it non-political. We didn't want it to be part of a government issue. This is the people. The people are gonna own the Veterans Memorial, first of all, was put up not by the town. It wasn't put up by the VFW or anybody else. It was put up by the people in the town who volunteered their time to do it. All the money, it cost about $15,000 to put that memorial up, and that was all collected and done through work and by people in the town and veterans, not by the town. The town gave us a light for the flagpole, that was it. And the land.
My concern, I guess, in my hat sitting in the selectman's office is I would be afraid if it, once it's taken away from the town, then if something happens, and then it would be hard to put it back in the budget if I'm not.
Yeah,
mistaken.
besides that, again, I want to start with, I think all of this is very important, and I think it's a great project. It's just, I think there's some disconnected pieces here, and want to make sure before we extend funds for something, that the town understands what the project is, and not just the ARPA commission, right? So I think it's a bigger conversation that has started at ARPA and it didn't happen anywhere else. And that's a little bit of my concern.
What money has the town put in on the flags on the poles?
Well, all of the money goes through the town. So
Yeah,
we
but what
collect the
money-
donate, I didn't say we put money into the town.
Right,
So
it's all,
I would say if you're gonna take this over, then we're gonna stop taking donations and we're gonna completely separate. I think that needs to be a conversation because we set up something with the town and now a private group is coming and saying, we're gonna do something completely different. I'm not saying I disagree with what you're trying to do, Ed. I think this is not the place to make those decisions and that there should be some conversation about it. If someone comes to us and ask for, you know, a donation for the flag, we're still gonna take it because we're not moving in any different direction from the town's perspective. We would still take in that donation, run it through the flag committee, and our finance office is reimbursing things for there. At some point, you're now saying you're doing that separate, but we're not aware of that. Funds are still funneling through the town. And if that's not gonna happen, there needs to be some discussion. And this just isn't the place for that to be.
the reason we did this is because the flags on the poles that are up there now, next year, they're gonna have to be replaced. And the time to purchase them is now because the price is going up. We didn't want to go to the town and say, well, we need $3,000 for those flags.
Would it be possible for you to coordinate with the selectmen and answer all the questions, get the details hammered out, instead of sitting here and we're just gonna go back and forth and not get anywhere? Leave it on the list till we get more information. Does that make sense?
It does, because some of my concern is if ARPA gives you $6,000 now, when that runs out, you're gonna come back to the town. If donations aren't there, right, you may come back to the town in a couple of years and say, we need some funds. And I think we need to be prepared to see what that is and exactly for the town to understand how the foundation works before we give any money to that. There's a little bit of some mixed company here. So you've got your organization, things that were done by the town, all this stuff at the cemeteries has been coordinated and paid for by the town. So we coordinate with the VFW and the Boy Scouts on an annual basis.
And that's one of the problems, because there's been no coordination at all the way it is now. There are about 30% of the graves up there don't have markers on them, and about 40% of them don't have flags. Because nobody has been organizing this, nobody's gotten together. Our foundation got together because we saw that there was a something missing there, and that's what was happening. And we wanted to get this together and get it right. I don't want to keep getting calls from people saying, why don't I have something on my, somebody's grave? And that's what I do. I get those calls all the time.
They're calling you as the commander of the VFW.
That's right.
correct? All right.
That's right. And I shouldn't be getting those calls. I'm not the cemetery. And the town takes care of the flags and the markers. I'm not supposed to be doing it.
Have you referred any of those calls back to here so that we could be aware of them? So to Tom's point, I think there's just a different conversation that isn't for the ARPA
I
commission.
understand that.
And
but I'm
again,
I'm
I am
telling
in
you
favor
why-
of the things we're trying to do. I just would like to see.
I'm
a
telling you why we
conversation.
did it, only because this, at the time now, if we don't purchase them now, the cost is, you know, inflation's going up now. The cost is gonna be crazy. And we're not gonna be able to purchase these things in the future, even with the town's help, because I can tell you right now, you're not gonna increase the mill rate in the town to put, for me to put flags up. You aren't.
I'm not saying I wouldn't propose it. I think like everything, every increase in budget is difficult, but in a couple of years, if we find ourselves in the same spot, once we've started it, our residents are gonna expect it, and I can appreciate that, and we have to be prepared to pay for that.
They're
We're
ex-
not prepared to pay for the $6,000 if we didn't have ARPA
They're
funds. So
expecting
where
it
would we get
now.
it? Right,
They're
So-
expecting it now because they come to us and they ask him and me, when are we gonna put them up and how long are we gonna put them up? And when we tell them we're gonna take them down, they say, well, we wish you would leave them up. We're getting it already.
One of the reasons we do take them down is they will not last 2 years if we had them up. So we take them down about 2 weeks after 4th of July, put them up 2 weeks before Veterans Day, take them down 2 weeks after. It's a lot of work and a little bit dangerous on 74. But again, some of the flags, as I say, are 4 years old. And we replaced 5 this year.
And
It is
that's,
appreciated too.
It is.
I mean,
yeah, but that's the other issue, is we're putting them up on 74. Luckily, we have a state cop that donates his time and brings his car up with his lights so we can put them up. But still, have you ever been on 74 in the back of a truck trying to put a flag up on a pole?
I'll move that we table ARPA 33, awaiting further information.
Second.
And thank you very much.
Any discussion about tabling it? Okay, all in favor?
All right.
Anyone opposed? All right, so it sounds like all that needs to happen next is just getting with the Board of Selectmen and just hearing out the details of how it would work going forward and how it will work. All right, moving on to ARPA 34, storage box at Department of Public Works for evictions, $6,000.
All right, so basically we get evictions, and we usually put the stuff outside and cover it with a tarp. We have to hold it for 15 days when somebody gets evicted. We do have a storage container that we do use now for our public work stuff. In the winter time, we take the stuff out. Our garage is the biggest. So it would be beneficial if it could go up to the transfer station and then it's there. And then once the 15 days are up, we usually have an eviction sale, no one ever shows up, and then it gets thrown away. Where if some of the stuff is still okay, we could put it by the swamp shed, or we could always do it on a day that the transfer station's open, so more people maybe would come up there and take stuff. So it'd just be more for convenience instead of hauling all our stuff. In the wintertime, we put the lawnmowers in there, everything in there, so they're undercover. Now when we have an eviction, we pull it all out, put it in the garage, and we have to wait. So this would be, and then it's there, nobody's touching it, it's not like. So,
I have a question. Where it's gonna go up and it's
Up
gonna
at the
have like its own spot?
Yeah, it'll have its own spot at the transfer station. Yeah.
So I think that's a great idea, especially when you have the auction. You have to publicly notice, warn the auction, you would have a location for that, and you would be able to like, that's.
knowing sometimes the condition of things varies.
Right,
Yeah. If we have to leave it in the garage, we've received items that have been outside for weeks on end and all sorts of weather. And then the guys have to put it in the garage to keep it covered. So
and it's hard in the winter time when all the plows are on the trucks and trying to put stuff in there and now we're moving stuff around or keeping the truck outside for the time being.
I have a question. Where did you come up with $6,000?
I got a pool right here.
Okay. Is that included with the thing?
That would go there.
How big is it?
It's a 20-footer.
is it the same
It's
as
the
the one
same,
that's outside?
exactly, same thing out there. Yep.
So that'll fit a household.
Yeah. It's packed in there.
All right, now let's put my naysayer hat on. How often do you think we'll really use it?
It all depends. I mean, we've had quite a few and then sometimes we had one the other day and it got canceled. So it's one of those where we can get 2 a month or 1 a month or 1 a year,
You
but it's
get,
there.
you get a couple evictions,
Yeah.
at least a year.
Yeah.
You do.
You two would know.
I do. I just, ask the question that
Yeah.
people are gonna wanna know, how often are we gonna be able to do something like this? The only thing I wouldn't want us to do is start to use it for something else, and then,
That's why it's gonna go
then
to the
Troy will end
transfer
up in the same situation he's in now, where he has to empty out the public works things, and so it stays just for that purpose.
That's why I would go to the transfer station and that's where I would stay.
I'm sorry for staying on the topic. 6,000 just seems a lot to me. Did you get more than one quote?
That's off the state bid from Eagle Leasing,
And it's brand new?
brand new.
Okay, could you get a used one for less?
Probably.
Good. Condition varies.
Right, exactly.
We have a few of the holes in the roof, like that, that you don't find.
We do have to, we have to keep them from the elephant, they're belonging to the elephant.
Yes, right.
So this is an ongoing fight with municipalities trying to make us not responsible for these things because they do come at a cost. And some larger towns and cities are really impacted more severely than we are and don't have a place. They end up paying storage offsite at places. And so there's been work for the last, many years for legislation to change the responsibility of the town to have to take in the belongings, and it's 15 days, and then occurs. And at least our options on Homer towns, in my time, I've been permitting one to show. It's frustrating.
Would pods be cheaper? I'm just trying to think, because we're getting really, really low on the money here, so
Right, no.
everything.
I would say pods are more expensive, and they.
You have to rent those as you
reliable.
come, so yeah.
When we sought temporary part-time use of the boxes in here, I priced out pods and the cost to get it here and then renting it for what you need for equivalent capacities. It's like a couple $100.
Will this have wheels or? is
No,
it
it would
stationary?
it's stationary. Yep. We'll make a pad, a gravel pad, and put stone down and we'll separate.
And do you need to get design approval for that?
About the first
Yeah.
one. Just needing some-
Oh,
Yeah.
years.
And it might be some changes.
Would you have to like do anything?
Yeah.
Yeah, like, so it doesn't like rust or whatever?
No, we have, when we keep all the oil and stuff in it, we painted the roof. And that's been doing.
And this one, I can't remember if she got, Stephanie purchased this last summer. Do you know if it was new? We got it?
That one was used. I believe she paid like $8,000 for
I
that.
think so. I remember the cost had gone up. Maureen had been looking at one, but the time Bethany found the funds, it was more.
Because Maureen had rented the pods and had it over at Hall's Pond. I remember for storage and stuff during the summer.
I don't think it was it?
It was a
Yeah,
pod,
there was a
container.
pod there.
Are pads, like, aren't they smaller? Or do they come?
They have some different sizes, but there's none that are that size.
Yeah.
The other thing that I'm thinking is, I don't know, it doesn't sound like your stuff is very valuable. No one's getting into a Connex box if their stuff's locked in. So it's weather tight, it's safe, and I know we're talking about not reusing it, but if there's some type of an emergency and you're not using it, I mean, that thing's gonna be here long after we're all gone. So and you can't buy, I mean, even to get a prefab shed or any of those things, something half the size of that would be double the price. And so I mean, we had files that needed to come out of the building, and we repurposed that box to store immediately. So I just think that the overall long-term use of something like this for the cost, it just makes good sense.
How easy is it to move?
Just need a tow truck.
So you could move it from there and like if there was an emergency, if you needed it for something else, you could.
You move this one?
Yeah, like this one, we have a tow truck company come in, pick it up for us and move it here. And then pretty soon they're gonna pick it up, move it, and move it back to Hall's Ponds.
And that was
Where it was
essentially
there.
new, right? So because it had, the other piece that's different about that is it has basically a wood floor. So you can put things on it and they're not sitting in, on metal, and it's easy to use, it's level, you can move stuff in and out easily. So I mean, it's.
No, I think it's a great idea because I've heard of stories where there's a hoarding situation, there was a termite, like, with a cockroach, like, and you don't want.
You don't want
that in
that.
the garage. So I think it's a great idea.
Or not knowing what they're putting, what the condition is, right?
Yes.
Because somebody else packs it up and they move it to the garage. Our crew does not do that. And it's also inside the garage where our staff not just works and where trucks are housed, but where they eat, where they keep their personal items, the public works directors and assistant's office. So the thought of some of those things, and I can think of probably had maybe half a box filled with stuff that had been outside for nobody knows how long when it got packed up, so.
Want to make a motion?
I'll make a motion to move ARPA 34 to public.
That's second.
Any more discussion about it?
Just that, Corey, that price is all in, livery, taxes,
Yep, we're tax exempt, we're in the town. We're
never
tax
to be
exempt.
heard of again.
That's it.
Okay,
And it's actually cheaper than that, it's 5,400, so.
So the work you would do would be
Would be covered.
come out of your budget.
You're gonna have evictions, paint Okay,
That'll make us popular.
all right, all in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Any abstentions? All right, so moving on to our unfinished business, which we really don't have to discuss because I put little notes about all the different things that have been previously funded and where we're at with all of them, and I tried to update it with people's comments. I don't know if there's anything on here that anyone sees right now that they have an even further update on. The ambulance, I know that was purchased, but
Yep, we have seen it in the Memorial Day Parade is lettered, the stretcher has been installed, radios have been installed. A couple bills that have come in. It's back at the shop for rear brakes. We have to install the equipment, has to be inspected by state office of emergency medical services. Registered, so we still have a ways to go, some stuff.
so do you have close to 100,000? Do you think it'll be?
It'll be, we haven't seen the bill for the repairs or the stretcher yet. So I don't know what those are. The equipment in it can range anywhere from 15 to 30,000. So hundreds of item lists that we require to carry. Pass those on to a couple of vendors. So we count your chickens of the returning money here.
Okay,
This morning, Chief Moore said to me that it was about 2 weeks, if you are in agreement to it, about 2 weeks before it was ready for the state inspection.
And that's contingent on getting supplies in from the vendors. Their supply chain, apparently, just like everybody else, buying medical supplies, and some of these supply them like glucose for diabetics. Very common thing. Right here, somebody gives them it. Back ordered 2 to 3 months for multiple vendors. That's why, but that's the way it is. Maybe that way, some of the other way. So it's coming.
okay. The other one that I'm glad Mike is here. Can you just tell us where we're at with the EDC project?
Yeah, we did some, we blasted it out on social media and through some other channels. So the applications have started to come in. We've had a few people just reach out for asking questions or clarification or what have you. So they're rolling through the end of the month. And they're not going to be doing any consideration until it's closed. They want to see what we've got before we start with that.
We do Parks and Rec, by any chance?
Yep, that's on the next one.
We have a gentleman here, right?
No other things to update. We're good with all.
Radios are still on order.
Yeah.
I expect it to come in until September at the earliest.
Jenny, how summer camp is going since people found out it was
Yes,
free?
very good. We're still accepting applications.
Can you guys give us an update about how many people you have
61 registered
total?
total.
Okay.
That's
So
great.
we're still pretty far from
Good.
We're,
from the 50 each week.
we have about 10 slots available each week.
Awesome.
Okay.
It really is good. Good job.
Thank you.
All right, so moving on to the updates on previously heard and tabled requests. So this is where we're gonna get to the walking track. So ARPA 1718, walking improvements, which includes drainage and lights. So,
So
Cross.
the update that we have for you is the cost of design plans that would go into either option 1 or option 2. And there's 2 parts to the design plans. We have a field survey and preparation of base plan for a cost of $2,900. And then the second part of the design plans are engineering design, including preliminary plans for review, final plan, and local permitting. And the combined total of both of those is $7,600. So the commission would like to include these costs in with our previously asked totals for both options to cover the cost of that. And I'm sure everyone knows Carl has been nice enough to come here today. And I know there's always a lot of questions about specific details of the plans. And so Carl can answer those questions today.
So just to clarify, for now, the commission's asking for $7,600 just to do the design. And
So
Well, ARPA can be asked, specifically Erica asked for an engineer to look at it for us and give us a price for what it would take to design. So we did that. Now we went out, talked to Carl, they walked it, they came back and gave you an update on the price. We still, there was a feeling from Erica, and I think the rest of you, that a plan would be more appropriate for that kind of money. And that's why we asked Carl to come here today, and he gave us the prices. We just didn't want to say $7,600. Carl was nice enough to come to represent what that actually means.
Right, I just want to make sure I understand what the total cost of the project you're looking at now. I know it's different than the original ask.
So we have, I can get into the specifics again if you'd like, but we have option 1, which is essentially the complete fix of the park. And the cost of that is, we had to change it. We had an updated cost to the lighting part of the project, so we had to increase that. I covered all this at the last meeting, but the total went up to $189,379. So that was the update to that option to complete the whole park. And then we would, if we were going along with that one, it would be an additional $7,600 added to that to cover the cost of the designs. So that would be a complete total of $196,979. And then we have the other option, which is to fix the problem areas of the park, not necessarily completely fix the park. And the updated light cost goes along that plan as well. So that went up to $121,379. And if we went along with that option, again, we would like to add the $7,600 to that to get the cost for the design plans.
Does the rec commission have a recommendation at all, like,
The recommendation from the commission was to fix the park the right way, or the more expensive option, instead of just kind of a patchwork.
200 grand, give or take?
The feeling was to fix it once and be done with it. There was issues in the past, and maybe Carl can represent that maybe it wasn't completed to the extent maybe it should have been completed.
Yeah, if I could just comment on
Please
that.
do, please.
When we started this project originally, I don't know if you all remember, that at the north end especially, there were chunks of concrete and asphalt that have been dumped by the DOT over a period of years from the work done along the highway. And then down at the southern end, in order to cover all those issues up, they were not taken away, they were covered up. We excavated a deep hole, took out a good amount of gravel, filled in all the voids between the slabs of concrete and asphalt, and then refilled the hole down there with the material brought from Yukon's expansion. So the materials that were put back into the hole, so to speak, were not as good as what, we had taken out. Now, what happens to an area like that is over the years, no matter how well you compact it, the things do happen, and things have settled. We have some low spots, and that's what the issue is, in terms of the repairs that have been proposed here. Just to get rid of those low spots, the wet spots, especially along the walkway and directly adjacent to the walkway areas.
I have a question. If it's not addressed, will it get worse?
It's hard to say. I mean, things have settled up to this point. Things are probably going to settle some more. And one thing that I've recommended over the years, hopefully it's being done when the grass is cut, is that especially on the top of fields where these concrete slabs and asphalt have been filled in, is that voids may still occur. They did in the early days. So every time a hole popped up, we would, put something into it. So this could still, this kind of thing could still happen. How do you determine the cost estimates, especially when you don't have a plan yet, the engineering plan? Probably we always have to do something on a preliminary basis.
Where'd that 180,000 come from?
From cost of materials, from what we've, I have the latest RS Means guidebook on estimating, and they have material prices, they have labor prices, they have equipment prices, so that's really where it comes from. Keep in mind, though, that things are changing on the fly here. That even the pizza man for delivery charges extra now for driving a car, for delivery. So the price of materials is going up at a rapid pace. And it's kind of hard to predict, but it's the best I can come up with. But it is based on something concrete in terms of the fact that I've looked at what prices there are out there for these kinds of jobs.
So what is the value of the engineering plan versus no engineering plan? Just going with what you recommended.
Oh, it can be done. I mean, you have to have some guidance, obviously, in terms of putting drainage in. But it all depends too on whether or not planning and zoning, would like to have a plan, because there are some improvements here that the lighting especially is something new. In order to show that, be a requirement. I mean, I'm not pushing the engineering or the plans.
I
It's
understand.
entirely up to.
Does your plan include oversight by you of the project as it moves
Oh,
forward?
sure, yeah. Yeah, it's like I work with Pro.
I would caution against not using an engineer with a public park. That's just my.
Carl designed the transfer station. Yeah, right? right?
Design the park.
He designed the park.
It's still
But
working.
he designed the park.
It was only
so,
20
yeah.
years. It's only supposed to, anyway.
We still
I
have a
think
picture.
the range really exacerbated some of the problems we have down there. The range from last year brought them to light probably a little bit sooner than we would have seen them.
Yeah.
So,
And erosion happens.
Bumpers.
And more people are using it, so there's, I mean, I don't know if it's wear and tear necessarily, but maybe more people are noticing it, and that the chance of something bad happening goes up when there's more people.
The Planning and Zoning Commission approved under Maureen, some of the changes to lighting. We have a lot of that information, so I think to the extent that some of it's available, we can work within the information we have so that we don't necessarily need to reinvent the wheel. I think the commission overall feels so that the town has to go and ask to, do basically everything that happens there. So whatever flexibility is allowed through the regulations, I think, be able to use. And just speaking to the project as a whole, I think that it's been sitting for quite a while. I think we ought to just move it over. I don't see any reason why we would not spend the money to do it the right way. I think it's strange for the town to be talking about a real solution and then a Band-Aid and say, yeah, let's go with the Band-Aid. I think it's a town park. It's used all the time. It's a huge asset. And if we wait much longer, we're just going to miss this construction. And so personally, I think we should just move it.
Is that a motion?
I don't know. I haven't seen enough nodding heads. I can make the motion, make a motion to move, I guess, you want to make them separately or together? Move ARPA 17 and
I think
18.
together, yeah.
Okay, so make a motion to move ARPA 17 and 18 to public hearing, and I guess specifically the $196,979 request for the fix.
Any more discussion about it?
no, I agree with Mike that if this is a project that moves forward out of this commission, out of public hearing, we look at the larger picture of just also like 2 cents in. If we were to get some feedback out of a public hearing that made us move in a direction other than approving it, this deep grant just opened up, and so there could be an alternative source of funds if need be.
Mike, can you repeat the number just so I have it?
100. Yeah.
196,979.
Okay, any more discussion about it? All those in favor?
Aye.
Can I vote? Okay,
Okay. Donna? And any no's and any abstentions? Okay, so we'll move that one to public hearing in the amount of $196,979.
Thank you, Carl, for coming today.
The next one's ARPA 20, the new furnace for the firehouse. And I believe
Yeah.
you got an actual number.
The good news is, I have a quote from, this, just to refresh, Wellington Hill Firehouse down the street. Chief Snyder. The warm air furnace that Bay area. A little bit of history. It used to heat a little bit more of the old part of the building, but a couple of years ago, I went to mini splits, the AC and the heat. So we only use it for phase now. There's a picture of it here. Look, here's the quote. Just pass it. The good news is we're asking for 20,000 now because we did finally get a quote from Fox Heating for hanging propane units. 3 hanging propane units. Those can be hooked to the current. We have a couple. We have like propane tanks already that we use for different things. But this particular furnace, Scott Nealon from Scotland Heating, been the guy that has serviced it in the last few years. I talked to him a few weeks ago. Eric had asked how old it was, and I think I said about 30 years. It's a 70s vintage. I said, that thing's 50 years old. You should have replaced it a long time. Anyway, so the crux of it, it's vintage. it's vintage. Like some of us there.
It might be worth something, that's
It
right.
might,
You're welcome to.
the burner's fine. You can't get it, they don't have parts for the furnace. The burner's a burner. That's not the issue. It's the exchanger and the rest of it, the blower. It's still working at this point. He says, I've asked you for 3 or 4 years to do something with that thing. Well, you know, when something's working, you're kind of like, this last time when it went out in the winter, it's a little bit louder. The Arpa thing came up, so we really need to do this, so. He's, you know, he says forced hot air. You know, they're only rated for 20 years, and I know a lot of people in Austin type furnaces. But anyway, this is his, you know, there's a safety concern. I want to say like it's terrible, but he says the only reason I never metered that place is because you don't sleep in there, and it's bays, and you know it's not a. But he's concerned with the thing going out, the health concerns, the thing going out, and having to replace it quickly. And it's in the basement of the station. It won't come out quickly, and you just won't have heat. If it goes at the wrong time, the good thing is with that is it's bays and nobody is in there, so it's not like, you know, if it's 10 degrees, it's a problem. But you could do something. Anyway, it's old and needs to be replaced. And he would rather see us, and he's the one that recommended actually the hanging units. We also are checking on just replacing the furnace. Oil. And oil's expensive, everything's expensive right now. Propane, oil, really doesn't. Propane is really clean. So that's the quote. That's the budget figure for now. The 20 might be a little bit less. That quote's for 15, 650. That's kind of where we're at.
This is, correct me if I'm wrong, this was never the network CIP. I hear you say for a couple of years he's been on that to
No,
replace it, but
No,
the department
no,
never.
it's
checked it
just
out.
one, yeah, one of those things, yeah, okay, you know. And on top, the other ones up there are okay, but they're getting there. We've got 2 other wells that are a little bit newer than that
I
one.
encourage them to take any of those others and put them in the CIP plan, since we know if the ARPA money goes away, if this didn't exist, what would they? do
Yeah.
at this
Well,
point?
it's gotta be done one way or another. Yeah, but you're right.
So
You know,
that's just my.
everything gets to a point where you can't, you know, you need to do something.
Yeah, and it's just, if you think you need to do something within 5 years, then it should be on the plan.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah,
it just helps.
yeah, sure. I'll bring that information back.
I mean, I'm thankful that if you're not gonna have heat, we have ARPA funds, otherwise.
Does anyone want to make a motion?
With you.
So the original request was 35,000, now we're looking at 15,650
For 20, but just,
for.
we're asking
total.
for,
Okay.
I mean,
Some contingency.
Yeah.
I appreciate contingencies these days. That quote's good today, but tomorrow.
it might be less.
I'll make a motion to move the new furnace project to.
Any discussion on that?
Are you gonna get other quotes for the propane too, that you could bring? to us?
Yeah, Stafford Mechanical in Williams. So we should have 3. at least.
Anything else? All in favor? Anyone abstain? Any notes? Okay, so we'll move on to public hearing as well. We're moving ahead here. The next one is ARPA 30 emergency generator and direct emergency line call line at Button Hill, which is what Don Berg was here for. They have done, I haven't been able to read in detail the stuff that they sent this morning, but they have some detailed plans. They've been getting quotes and things, and it's not as much as they originally asked for, which is good. I don't know exactly what the number is.
That was on our quote.
No, he sent me something just this month.
So the quote that you included in the email, we'll start with the generator, the tower generator system, so I'll see, was 20,000. Was, as I read this, was only for to cover buildings 10 and 12. As I recall the original presentation, we're talking about getting 2 generators, so you got 10, 12, 14, 16, so it would be this quote times 2.
Ah.
I thought it was that the generator be located between buildings 10 and 12.
Right, so there's one generator, as I understood, that'll run buildings 10 and 12. Then they're gonna put a second generator in between 14 and 16.
Yeah, that's actually what we wrote. Warren, so you said they have 2 files. Our pricing quote still at 38,438 per generator, but clear in that would be 76,876 for the 2 generators required to power 4 buildings. So it would also include extra soundproofing, a reporting system that would report to our monitoring company. That's alone is 3,200. Total for both what I consider essential options is 4,622. And they did discuss a system where generators could text or email them with alerts, but since there's no internet service, utility rooms, no phone lines, the cost would be $1465 times 2, plus annual charges of $260 times 2. So that was the monitoring service was like less expensive. More or less. So basically,
They have a fund for annual expenses.
well, yeah.
And I'm sorry, I wasn't here for the last discussion that came up, but is this basically generators to power up the cottages, like their apartments with the
Yes.
power?
Mhm.
Does Stafford have that?
Well, I think the concern is medical equipment that people need. I don't know if Stafford has that.
I know in the old,
I don't think.
in the old Avery Park, they did not have generators. And last time they had a failure there, Eversource brought in generators to hook them up. That complex, so,
I can tell you.
So they don't have it at Avery Park?
yeah, I don't know about the new one.
That's,
Right.
yeah, that's.
But I know Avery Park had a failure there before out of the street. They Eversource brought in generators.
Woodland Springs does not, they have a generator, like they have a common area, they have like 2 or 3 common areas on each floor, or maybe 2 common areas on each floor. Those are generator serviced, so if they have medical needs or whatever, they're able to go in there, but the air conditioning goes out, they are able to go into that, general area.
So the generators then would just be doing Button Hill, correct?
Correct.
Okay,
And the other building,
and then Willington Woods is on its own.
right.
Which only runs the common area.
There'd be no connection to the senior center.
Correct. But there would be, Button Hill, the emergency line, correct?
For the senior center?
No, the emergency, the pull cords to nowhere.
Well, that's a
Yeah.
whole different.
That's a whole different.
Why aren't they, I'm sorry.
We
when
need the
they-
generator for that.
when
Right.
they built Button Hill, wouldn't they have the call lines? Wouldn't those have been?
That was a thing that did not occur.
What's the status, what's the nature of the ownership of this?
So.
How is, just because I don't, and I'm wondering how much we should talk since he's not here, but just so that we're not basically funding a generator for a private builder. Or
Right.
essentially, why doesn't another apartment complex come and say, hey, wait a minute?
Well, it's managed by Coventry Housing Authority right now, but my understanding is it's owned by the Willington Housing Authority.
And what is the legal connection between the town and the housing authority? In that if they don't maintain, I'm not saying that's the case, we're talking about the housing authority and town residents, but just.
I don't think there is.
They're independent of.
They're independent, and in fact, when the town helped fund the building of those buildings, it says it right in the agreement that the town is not going to be funding anything in the future.
Yeah, I guess I
A
just,
couple of years ago, they came back to the town for these very items, the CIP, and we determined that they did not qualify. We'd had a legal agreement that said specifically that they couldn't come back to the town for these things. So while I can see its benefits, I see a resident who's chosen to stay in their home and they might have medically necessary equipment and not have a generator and have the same access. If we had something at the senior center where then they could go temporarily, that might be one thing, but we do have an emergency shelter where we then could, let our team speak to that, where individuals could be moved if need be. But now we're talking about multiple generators, not just
Keep
one.
in mind though, and going to Mike's point, question. With the ARPA money we're giving out, disseminating a lot of money to a lot of places that aren't town. So that's just a point.
But do they fall into a nonprofit or a business where we would, we turned a couple people in, said if you need some funds, you go here to the organization that's, the program that's been put up by the EDC. Where does that line draw between people going there for funds and coming directly to the commission?
Yeah.
Like even the Veterans, the Student Foundation is a nonprofit. Is this the place, or is the EDC the place to go? And I'm not sure they qualify every year.
Yeah. What is so this is an emergency generator, direct emergency call line, and the total request amount is, how much is it?
What's 200?
It was 200, but now I think it's more like
1,000.
Yeah.
No, it's 80 for just the generators. It's another bid for the,
Oh, right.
So the
Yeah,
email.
when I
I
call
sent-
line.
The original
Which is-
email before yours was 92,158 total, right?
yeah, which was 13,000 for 430 per building. So times 4 for that.
And so what is the expected lifespan of a commercial generator of that?
30 years. So, need some maintenance, they occasionally break, but you have some that are from the mid-80s and just, fortunately, we're able to still get parts for it. So it'll last a while. Supposing for a moment that they are eligible for some kind of nonprofit side of things, specifically through ARPA, and I didn't get it from CRP. And I'm old enough to appreciate living there someday. However, it's a lot of money for 25 people within those 24 units that affect or benefit only them. It'll be better use of some money if somebody wants to ask for it, is to put a generator at the senior center. That if they have medical equipment, oxygen concentrator or whatever, I'm sure the senior center could probably find accommodations for them. And it would be open town-wide and benefit everybody for that. And there's some benefit to keeping some of the shelter occupants separate from perhaps the elderly population whenever possible. And then they would be more comfortable going there as well, instead of going into the big crowd all school, that you could put, 10, 20 people in there, walk over there.
I mean, I would imagine that having a place that people could be in a situation that perhaps the school was being used by students. I mean, and most of the time the school is closed, but I don't know, to me, I agree with you 100%. I don't know the specific costs about the call line. And I think if the public safety folks feel like that's a good use of funds because it cuts down on responsibilities on their response.
So I'll start just referring to the generator side of things. And I think for roughly $80,000 to benefit 25 people or 24 units, half that money, roughly speaking, could probably run the senior center and benefit and be open to everyone. That's my feeling on that one. The call button thing is a completely separate issue. Those are the pull cords. It's usually one in each bedroom, one in the bathroom kind of thing. And if you're having a medical emergency, you pull the cord, close the switch. And the Wellington Woods department, the alarm goes to the dispatch center for one. And there's a fairly big light inside the hallway. Yes, it's inside the hallway. The other residents more likely to hear it and, hey, you okay, kind of thing. The problem they have, kind of paraphrasing Don, well, this is what kind of told me, was the light and the buzzer that are outside each apartment aren't audible any more than perhaps at best one apartment away. So and the light is very small. So somebody does pull the cord, right now it doesn't go out to an alarm system anywhere, and the light and the buzzer are inadequate for what they want to use it for. And he said, I believe the light and the buzzer also are not outdoor rated, even though they're mounted outdoors.
Is that still under warranty? Like, that's not that old.
But that's what they, I mean, that's
Well,
what they got.
it would have come under specifications,
Right.
and if the
Not that it
specifications
doesn't
were
work,
something
it's,
different.
it's what they,
It's more of a design acceptance. I did ask around to Ellington and Stimson Village, it's a similar sort of place. Their alarm goes to the ambulance building, which doesn't make much sense in my book, because they're not a call, and the police gonna receive it. It all depends on how much you depend on the cord, or nowadays people have, you know, the iPhone and can't get up alarms that are available on wristwatch and on necklace. Some of them are GPS based, so even if you're not home, you can still press it, find out where you are. But there is other technology out there for that.
This isn't a situation where once they go in and start making these upgrades, they're dealing with an electrical or ADA accessibility codes or something where now they're gonna have to be making other upgrades, similar to, you know.
No, the switching mechanism, what they see inside the apartment is still the same. Somebody pull switch with a rope one that comes to the floor.
So it's not gonna morph into other mandatory upgrades then?
No, but it will be an annual, probably an annual fee, depending on their alarm panel setup.
I think it'd be more likely to end up with some electrical issue if there was something done at the beginning that they're just unaware of than ADA, because these were built and finished in 2017. So I think they're up to date as far as ADA goes, but not knowing, I mean, knowing that this exists, who knows?
Can we like try to communicate back to Don that he try to flesh out this idea of, or has he looked at something related to a generator for the seniors? Or I'm just trying to think of how we move something so that we have.
Yeah, he wouldn't be the one to request it for the senior center.
But he could go to the seniors aid and have a conversation with their executive about that, right? And so that might be a broader conversation.
Just as long as he can
But
come back with
sometimes there's a
something
little,
for the next meeting.
back and forth.
I'm shaking my head because I know it's gonna be me.
Remind me.
Yes, I.
You can sit there with them, but I heard them that they should speak with, you know, they're an independent organization of the town. And so we can't make those decisions as a, you know, a town.
But the senior center is considered a town building.
Yep.
So there's no restrictions per se in terms of expenditures going into the senior center.
No, you mean the request coming from the senior center? No,
Right.
no.
But we want the senior center management to be on board with it. It
Absolutely.
can't be in it.
And didn't the senior center ask for a generator already? Wasn't
Yeah.
that-
They
A
have.
few years ago, but it was an odd bid, it was like $6,000.
Well, so Jenny brought us
Yeah.
something,
Really.
but then they've gone to CIP before and it's been shot down at CIP. I'm sure this came up and I apologize if I didn't retain it. Wellington Woods has a generator that does just the common room.
It does the common room and it will run the furnaces. They have to manually set the zone valves to open, but they can't heat the entire building on that generator.
So those individual apartments can't have heat, but we're gonna put a generator that's gonna heat individual units. So I see a little bit of
So Wellington Woods can,
discrepancy. Is someone else gonna come to us with a larger request because,
the Wellington Woods can heat the entire building.
okay,
They just, whoever runs the place has to find the zone valve, reach thermostat, throw the zone valve manually.
But if you have an oxygen tank in one unit, you can't.
That's
use it
correct.
there.
They
You have to
they would go
to the
down,
common
they would go down.
Yeah.
town. So,
and these are, we're talking about everything to power their individual apartments as opposed to a common space.
That's right. 'Cause They
I
don't
would-
have a common space.
Right, and again, the concept I think is coming from a great place, but as far as giving back to the larger community, I think we'd be better off putting our funds into a place that would provide not just for the occupants of Button Hill, but also seniors that are maybe relatively close to there and across the town, depending on weather and circumstances, that could get to that one central location for seniors.
In the senior center, we're we're not saying no, we're just saying we
No,
don't think it
nobody-
should be there.
nobody's asked yet.
We think,
Right.
I think it would be better suited all around. If it was here and you could walk or get over there.
We have a bus too.
So, yeah.
So, yeah,
And that way it would serve all of our senior population if they needed a place, to either cool or eat and use their medically necessary.
Coventry did they call it micro cell over Main Street where it does the schools, the town hall, the police station and the fire station all at once. Obviously a great big system and I think they're fortunate to have natural gas over there, so it's their fuel supply. Like, I'll do that. But for the $80,000 for 24 units,
Would the request come from seniors?
Seniors.
For the senior center?
Yep.
Only for seniors?
Yep.
That's,
Can I move that we table this? And I think we had a hearty discussion, but I can appreciate that Don waited as long as he could. He did let us know that he was waiting for some medical equipment.
Yeah.
And that we table this to have an opportunity to talk to him and maybe reach out to the seniors.
Yeah. Second,
Second.
any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone against? Any abstentions? Okay. The last one is the Historical Society Archival Storage, and I don't think we have any new information on that, and there's no one here, so I think we'll just keep that on the tabled list. And then moving on to previously heard and approved to move to public hearing was the technology upgrade at the senior center, which was also already on the agenda, but they requested that it be tabled. We don't have any further information, so I think it just stays there. And then request to be closed. Arpa 7, the AC for the HMS band room. Can we close that one, or we haven't paid the final bill yet? Okay.
It's not done yet.
Oh,
I think it'd be done when school is out.
okay. Yeah, I don't know why. That's done. Okay.
And it was, we have to do the bills?
That receivables, I don't believe it's been done.
I thought it's not done.
I thought it was done.
Yeah,
I thought Phil said it was done, but I could be wrong. Check with it, maybe close it next time.
Yeah. All right, and Article 11, the town COB basement cleaning and concrete floor project, which I believe
It's
is
done. The last bill is going to be signed hopefully tonight and sent out tomorrow.
Okay, so we can close that one. Is there a motion to close it with the amount?
I will move to close, happily close the COB basement cleaning concrete floor project. The total amount was $41,785.08.
Okay, and returning,
And returning $15,714.92.
back to fund 19.
Back to Fund 19.
second.
Okay, yes, Tom's seconding it. Any discussion on that?
Now, I want to thank Troy and Kelsey. They've done a lot of work on this project. It was, it's been interesting. It's led to some other interesting things in our old building. The mics no longer have a way in. Some of them took up residence in the ceiling in my office.
And in the land use
And in the
office.
land use office. So if you're in the
Well,
building and it's
They took
now,
up eternal residence, put it that way.
we managed it, yeah. So the mics problem that seemed to be contained to the basement is now expanded throughout the building. But
And the
the,
fumes, those fumes that
oh,
we
it's
had.
been, yeah,
go away.
it's been interesting. So
You know anybody, Christina, that takes care of mice?
Yeah, I know someone.
they come here, they take care of our mice, but they're never a mice problem when they're here.
Right. All right, well, great. Thanks for, that's great. So with the 15,700 return, there is now a total of 20,945.06 that has been put back in the pot, basically. So now there are $583,982 remaining to be appropriated, and I think if all requests are funded as don't quote me on this number, but because I think some of these things have shifted a little bit, but it's around $110,000. It still remains if everything is funded. So, yeah. So, yeah, there's still a motion. So all in favor? Anyone against? Okay. All right, so thank you. We're moving on to opportunity to call a public hearing. We have a few things that are ready to go to public hearing. I don't know if we want to do it this month. We want to wait another month. We do have our next regular meeting is on, it's a Monday the 20th, but that's a holiday. So then we thought it could be on the Tuesday, the 21st, or we could just skip and public hearing instead, one day late this month.
I would not be there to the public hearing that night because there's PZC and Board of Selectmen on the 21st.
Yeah, that was,
Are there any items that are, need to be acted on a timely basis?
Getting the engineer going and the plan for the park is really important.
when's the next regular scheduled ARPA?
Well, it was on the 20th, which can't be.
So the soonest public hearing would be.
So we agreed today, it could have been.
So the next meeting following that would be.
The 4th, which obviously won't be July 4th. I mean, we could decide that the next regular meeting is the 27th. I mean, sorry. The public hearing on the 27th of June.
Well, I'm thinking, could we set the public hearing for like early July, have an ARPA meeting on the 27th so that we could hopefully get some more projects there?
Yeah.
Rather than having to have 2 meetings.
That sounds good to everyone?
Yes. Sure.
All right, so we have a regular ARPA meeting, 1:30 in the afternoon on the 27th. Then we have a public hearing perhaps on July 11th in the evening. Yeah, especially, yeah, it would be a special meeting.
That's the soonest we can do that.
Well, because next Monday's a holiday, or 2 Mondays, which is tentative.
Today,
So we would have a meeting at 1:30 in the afternoon, just a special regular meeting, we'll call it, on the 27th of June. Then we would have a public hearing in the evening on July 11th. Does that make sense?
Now regarding the ARPA 17 and 18 project, is that only to, at this point, approve the engineering money? And not the whole project?
The whole thing.
So it's all or nothing?
No, but I think that's what we're going to public hearing with. And then as a commission, what comes out of public hearing, we can make those decisions on.
So that perhaps you may have more accurate estimate if you have the engineering.
But after the
Although-
public hearing, we could certainly, I think the public hearing is really more about the project itself
Right.
with our estimated cost. And then we could say, we'll approve the first, like in phases,
Mhm.
and we had a better idea. of
And
what it's gonna cost.
we can, like, I don't know what the word is, it's not appropriate, but earmark it, so that it's put aside at least. It's probably not gonna be cheaper than 100.
I mean,
Or 200.
The problem is, like, the costs are just gonna be so fluctuating based on
Yeah.
the things that he's looking for, if they can even get them, that for him to, I mean, when I've talked with him about some of these types of projects in the past, it's like spending money to have the engineer put together estimates, which are gonna be wrong by the time we fund it. In my mind, I don't know what Carl is just, I just think we ought to have him spend that money getting us a plan that we can at least implement regardless of how the pricing fluctuates. But I think my motion was for the 196, so that's the whole thing, including the 7,000.
Yeah.
So we can adjust it from there, but,
But again, that's just a public hearing.
yeah, I
Yeah,
agree.
This commission would have a different process.
Now excluding the traffic camera project, where are we at the point of having to say no to these?
We haven't run out yet.
Okay.
We still have 100.
But the traffic camera project is included in that.
No,
I mean,
it's
no
not.
one's Officially,
It's not, and I think that, 214.
we wouldn't put it like that.
Where'd that one?
And the libraries,
Like-
I mean, I heard
Or
that
it's
they
like
were
a
going
top.
to submit something, but they haven't. So,
So the meeting on the 27th, that will give us enough time. I mean, that's going to be 2 weeks. So that
Yeah.
should give us enough time to schedule legal notices. So whatever we do for the 27th was completed, can go right to.
yeah, it's all right. It's better that way because I'll forget. So,
2 weeks is so,
okay. So anyone else have anything to say?
just
So-
like here with them.
Think- Oh, yeah.
Who wants to speak?
Mike's
Mike's still on there.
Mike, do you have anything you'd like to say?
College graduate.
Okay.
Trying to mute, sorry. Were you asking me?
Well,
You're the president, you're the.
you're the only one present to speak, so if you wanted to say something, now would be
Oh.
the time.
I was waiting to hear you say we're back to present to speak, so I guess we are.
Yeah.
Okay, just very briefly, I appreciated the discussion earlier about how to do the vote on the bonuses. Regardless of the rest of the program, I think that discussion was important, and I would like to clarify the difference in Robert's rules between abstention and recusal centers around abstention is not participating in the vote. Recusal is not participating in the discussion at all. And either way, the state ethics rules, which also obviously apply here and supersede Robert's rules, are pretty clear. And I don't think anyone doubts that. I'm not challenging anybody. And that is that people cannot vote in a position of power on a public agency in some way that will benefit them financially. So, and I think there were a lot of comments to that effect. So basically, my hope is that even in the vote today, even though it's only to move it forward to public hearing, that anyone who would potentially benefit from that did not vote even to move it forward. I think it's probably more proper to say that you didn't participate in it because that is essentially supporting it. Whereas if you voted against it, you would not be supporting it, or if you abstained, you would not be supporting or otherwise. I'm sorry if it sounds like I'm talking in a circle, but I guess I just wanted to comment on that. And also the comment about the quorum. I think Tom Smith had a prudent comment on that, that as long as there is a quorum present to conduct the meeting, then an abstained vote does not undo your quorum. You can still use the majority that participated in a yes or no vote. So you could essentially have, if you had 2 yeses and out of a 10-person group, 8 abstentions, that would still technically be a majority in favor of a motion. And then there was one other comment, I think, that said an abstention is considered for. Maybe I misunderstood that. That is not true. An abstention is clearly described in Robert's rules as taking no position. So a tie is a losing motion. You have to have a majority. I don't know if that helps clarify anything.
We did it right.
Nice to hear your voice anyway.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. And I'll see some of you at the selectmen's meeting tonight, I guess. Talk about that camera project.
So I guess we are at the point where someone can make a motion.
Motion to adjourn.
All in favor?
Thank you, everybody. And we're about to-
So now it doesn't even matter how much it was in tax, because by the time you appropriate, it's gonna be dry out.